Hey everyone, it's Ellis, and this is the patch 9.21 notes rundown. I actually don't know what to expect, as I know that preseason is right around the corner, and preseason is obviously coming with a lot of big overhauls to the game, and so it actually is a little bit difficult to assess how meaningful some of these changes are going to be because we don't know what's going to happen inside of the preseason. Let's get into it. Champions Garren, E-base damage per spin decreased. Garren's actually in a really good spot right now. I've been recommending a lot of people to obviously play him. He's extremely, extremely powerful ever since the changes that they ended up giving him. Anyways, E-Judgment, base damage spin 8 to 24 to 4 to 20. Damage ratio per spin 0 to 8.2, levels 1 to 18, plus 32 to 40% attack damage unchanged. Obviously, this is a sizable change that will impact Garren. I don't think that it's really going to change how he conducts himself throughout the course of the game, and so I think that this is one of the more acceptable balance changes. Kayn. Q damage increased, Rost modified damage ratio increased, bonage damage to monsters decreased, Q reaping slash 60 to 140 to 75 to 155, Rost modified damage 0.5 total attack damage to 0.55 total attack damage, bonus damage to monsters 55 to 40. So the Q change doesn't really matter all that much because I'm a very big advocate of maxing W, just only putting 1 point into Q, because W is guaranteed to have ineffectiveness inside of the gank, whereas Q, you're not always guaranteed to get off both modes of the Q anyway, so even if you end up maxing it, it's not something that's guaranteed. Also, if you are going for the transformation on Rost, you want the scaling on the W to come in handy once you do end up obtaining Rost in the early to mid-game transition. And so I'm a very big advocate of W max. I think that this further just helps or incentivizes people to go for the W max. So I really do like seeing this. Kog'maw, base stats around it now. Oh, actually, hold on. Let me pause on Kayn. Kayn is really not competitively viable in the current meta anyway. Kayn almost had potential to be competitively viable earlier on this year when some of the tank junglers were actually in meta and Rost actually fit in pretty okay, especially if you ended up going Spellbook or Conqueror. Oftentimes he could get away with Spellbook, especially because he would outscale most of the enemy team compositions at the time, but with the way that the meta has transitioned, Ross not in the best of places, and obviously Shadow Kayn, we don't talk about him. Kog'maw, base stats rounded up, Q&E base damage increase. Right now, Kog'maw's E does not feel rewarding to cast, even when it lands successfully, rather than decreasing the costs on his E or their ability early rank, we're upping the value so that Kog'maw's kit has a risk versus reward element. Mana is up by 3, mana regen is up ever so slightly. And then his Q, base damage 80 to 280 to 90 to 290, and then E Voidu's base damage 60 to 240 to 75 to 155. So obviously he's getting a little bit more damage inside of his kit. I view this as mostly just a placebo buff overall. I think that Kog'Maw's in a perfectly fine spot, but that a lot of people have forgotten that he exists. I think that he's perfectly capable of being picked right now, even in the World Championship on patch 9.19, and even Twitch is able to be picked in certain spots, but a lot of people forgot that Kog'Maw exists, which is an unfortunate thing. So hopefully placebo buffs can actually nudge people in the right direction to picking him. Lulu, E-Shield and damage increased later. Okay, Shield 80 to 220 to 80 to 240, damage 80 to 200 to 80 to 240. Obviously, the damage really helps for mid Lulu, but there's no real point to pick mid Lulu inside of the current meta. And obviously, even getting it at rank 3, having an extra 20 damage, I guess, inside of the laning phase is quite nice, or having the extra 10 damage at rank 2 can be nice if you end up maxing E for some reason, but ultimately, this doesn't really do anything. But it is Kog'Maw Lulu buffs, so I guess that's pretty cool to have them both occur at the same time. Maokai, it's been a while. W cost flattened, damage increased, R root duration increased. Twisted Advance cost 60 to 80 to 60 at all levels. And then damage 50 to 150 to 70 to 170. And R Nature's Grasp 0.6 to 2.4 seconds based on distance travel to 0.8 to 2.6 seconds based on distance travel. So none of this really matters. This isn't what's gating Maokai. This isn't what's preventing him from being viable or being picked. Basically, he would be a sitting duck in the current meta. He doesn't have enough durability, and his effectiveness and just being able to slot into high MMR or competitive team compositions just isn't there. And this does not touch on what is gating him from being able to be competitively viable. So doesn't really matter. Master Yi, Phantom hits now proc Double Strike and apply Double Strike stacks. That's obviously a really nice fix for him. Pike, base health growth decreased. Passive gray health from damage decreased. Base health growth, so he's going to end up losing basically a Ruby Crystal at level 18. Passive Gift of the Drowned Ones, gray health 30 to 81%, levels 1 to 18, to 25% to 50%, levels 1 to 18 is obviously very, very big and does impact Pike's mid-game most importantly, which is, I guess, where he does start to get a little obnoxious and out of control. Well, his early game is going to be relatively fine. Shaco, W, box duration decreased. I really don't like this. AP Shaco jungle or AD Shaco jungle are just both absolutely terrible champions. I said when the Shaco changes initially went through that I had already speculated prior to the changes going through that Shaco was actually viable as a support champion, and then after the changes went through, it further got even better. It furthered the notion that you should play him as support. Right now, he's an extremely, extremely good support champion, and this kind of a change, the W Jack in the box duration going from 60 to 40 seconds, it does hit support ever so slightly in the mid and late game. However, what it really is doing is it's just further hurting jungle Shaco early on with the box duration, and I just really don't like that. There's a lot of people that are like, but Shaco can gank bottom at, he can be level 3, bots level 1, cool. Ward at 150 or ward at 2 minutes, the tri-brush, and then he can't do that. And it's like, but I have to ward at 2 minutes just because they picked a Shaco? Yeah, and then the enemy team has to play with Shaco for the rest of the game. So, I mean, who's really losing out here? So, anyways, Sona, follow-up, quality of life changes, and bug... I guess life comes at you fast. She really grew up in just a couple of patches. Life comes at you fast. Oh, man. Oh, jeez. Someone has been camping out at Crystal Palace, I guess. I don't know. Viktor, base stats rounded up. Q damage increased. She's looking like Wendy from Breaking Bad. Oh, my God. Oh, no. All right. Oh, jeez. All right. Okay, Viktor, base stats rounded up, Q damage increased. Viktor is a little weaker than we expected after the changes last patch. We're going late on the follow-up since we know people are still getting accustomed to him. We're also including bug fix that already happened in a mid-patch update in 920 since we weren't able to widely message it out at the time. Health is up by 2, attack damage is up by 1, armor is up by 0.3, Q Siphon power 50 to 110 scaling to 60 to 120, great. Now probably buffs Viktor's shield when augmented, great. Gravity field's special effects no longer noticeably louder when using it against more than one enemy. These changes don't help Viktor enough, but obviously the slow change that was given to his augment was definitely welcome, but he still suffers from the problem that a lot of other mages have, which is that there's not a lot of damage. Warwick, Q ratio increased later. W bonus attack speed increased. Q jaws of the beast 6 to 8% of the target's max health to 6 to 10% of the target's max health. W blood hunt, bonus attack speed 50 to 110% upon attacking a blood hunted target or an enemy unit below 50% of their max health to 70 to 110% upon attacking a blood hunted target or an enemy unit below 50% of their max health. So this is kind of big. It's not massive, and it's not what's gating Warwick from competitive play, but these are really nice changes, especially for solo queue Warwick. I think that this change is actually a lot bigger for top lane Warwick than it is for jungle Warwick. But even top lane Warwick isn't really all that viable, although I don't think it's that bad. Top lane Warwick, I think, has much more of an argument for it, supporting it, than, say, jungle. That was really the patch? I guess we have preseason coming up, so let's just recap before we get to what everyone's really here for, aka the skins. So, Garren's changes are completely fine. He's still in a perfectly good spot inside of solo queue. If you're trying to win your gold promos, or your platinum promos, diamond promos, whatever, pick up Garren. Kayn doesn't really matter. I think that it further incentivizes you to just go for the W max, which you should have already been doing anyway. I know that some people would put Q to 3 points and then start maxing W, but realistically, if you're just kiting the camp properly anyway, you don't really need the extra damage from Q at all, and the extra damage from Q, I guess, only really helps you if you're trying to solo something like Dragon, which is not entirely necessary because Kayn can already do it with a W max as long as he has jungle component items. So it doesn't really matter. Kayn's already so overloaded with his Q. The W is guaranteed to go off, and it's a necessity inside of a gank, whereas both modes of the Q are not guaranteed to go off. And then just having the base scaling for the transition into Rost is very important. Kog'Maw, this is a placebo buff. Obviously, it will end up buffing him ever so slightly, but Kog'Maw is in a perfectly fine spot right now. Just pro teams and high MMR players are not picking him up. Lulu change doesn't really do anything. Maokai completely whiffs on what is making Maokai not be pickable, and so the buffs are really, really cool because I'm all for buffs. I'm all for just, slowly adding a little bit of power to champions over time. So maybe, sometime in patch 11.6, Maokai might be viable. Anyways, Master Yi, obviously nice little bug fix change right there. Pike, base health growth doesn't really change all that much. Pike's still going to be Pike, even though obviously he'll be able to be managed a little bit better in the mid game. Shaco change is really, really sad to see. I think that they should have compensated him in some other area, especially because I think Jungle Shaco is such an abomination right now, especially at high MMR, and if the players are competent. And if I remember tweeting out about this, if you say that Shaco is a very busted champion, you're basically conceding that you're bad at the game. Because it's so easy with early game trinkets to play around his jungle clear times and the way that Shaco has to gank. And with everything that ended up happening to his change lists, he's only really able to be a support. So anyways, Sona, follow-up quality of life changes. Viktor, obviously that change is not enough. The Warwick change is the most interesting change that we got out of the entire patch, but even still, I do think that it's more so helping top Warwick than it is jungle Warwick. Bunch of bug fixes. Now let's get into the real important reason that you guys are all here, okay? Witch's Brew Blitzcrank. This looks like, what is this? Cthulhu? Cartoon? I don't remember how you pronounce them. The eye. You know what else this looks like? It looks like the eye on, is it Nemesis? Or is it Tyrant? Or let me, Nemesis Resident Evil Eye. Is it Nemesis's eye? No, it's not. What is the eye? Yeah. Well, it's kind of like the eye. Resident Evil Eye. Oh, yeah, it's the Resident Evil Eye. Kind of. You know what I'm talking about? The Resident Evil Eye? It's exactly what it is. That's what it reminds me of. But I think that there's something else that this looks a lot more similar to. I guess the Eye of Sauron is a pretty good thing. So it doesn't look like there's any Easter eggs in here. This cat is obviously really cool. Although that looks like Misfortune or something, right? She's holding up guns, but I don't seem to see anything else. But no matter what, the skin actually looks really cool. Oh, it is Misfortune. Cool. So they have Misfortune right here. Is this a Yuumi skin? Are we going to get like a pumpkin Yuumi skin? We have some witches up here on a broom. Doesn't look like there's any other Easter eggs to really spot. This is actually giving me a lot of nostalgia. There was a TV show that used to come out on Disney Channel every year with like witches, and I think there was a graveyard involved. I can't even remember. It was like 3 witches that would... Hocus Pocus, I think, was the name of the movie. Giving me that vibe. Anyways, oh yes, the Prestige Edition, very important. Excellent, yes. This is very important. Nope. No. Alright, Count Kassadin. I like this. Oh, Kledgela! Who's that back there? I actually don't know who that is back there. This has to be Yuumi, or it has to be Teemo or something. I have no idea. Why don't they make this skin? Or maybe it is Yuumi or Teemo? I don't even know. But, I mean, this guy's obviously loaded. So, I mean, he's ripped. He's rich. I mean, is there anything Kassadin can't do? I mean, everyone's probably just trying to get with him at this point. God. All right, well. And then Anniversary. So, truly one of the best skins here. This is actually the stuff of nightmares. I like the really cartoony Pantheon. I actually would really, really like if Riot made a Toon skin theme. And if you guys don't know what I mean by that, if anyone ever played Yu-Gi-Oh!, there was like Toon Blue Eyes White Dragon, Toon Dark Magician, Toon Dark Magician Girl, Toon Summon Skull. I would really like a skin where they make certain skin lines that are toon. And that would be really funny. Like if you make them overtly cartoonish. Like this Pantheon looks like a Lego piece. It's obviously Baker Pantheon, but it looks like a Lego piece. I just feel like that would be so cool if they made like Lego looking or overly cartoony looking skin theme. I just think that would be such a cool idea. And you can even have the chromas for the toon theme be different skin variants in the toon theme. So you're ultimately selling like multiple kinds of skins that I guess you know what I'm saying. Anyways, that is pretty much it. So overall, not really an impactful patch at all. And you know what? I feel like they actually really whiffed on some opportunities here with Halloween skins, but I mean that's sort of just me. I think that like they could have definitely done a little bit more blast to the past with some famous pop culture references within skins and using certain champions. But anyways, there's always Christmas, and so we just gotta hold out for Santa Orn. You know, Santa Orn is all that we gotta hold out for. All right, hope you enjoyed the patch.